Mac guys here on Birds 365, McMullen, McDonald, and our buddy Mike Tanier, one of the very few people on earth who has a better gray beard than me. Good to have him here with us on Birds 365. Mike Tanier, I'm going to start you with this question. And if you feel the need to be incredulous, jump right in and be as incredulous as you need be. But it's a hypothetical question that I couldn't get an answer for earlier because it was an incredulous question. Let's say both Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley have markets this offseason that crater, that not only is the NFL running back devalued at a ridiculous rate, and that they're both willing to play for $3 million this year. And the Philadelphia Eagles have their choice of which two they want. They both say, we're in. Eagles, yes, we'll sign for $3 million. I know this is hypothetical. I'm not suggesting it can actually happen. I'm just trying to get an answer to get your opinion on the two players and where the Eagles offense is going from here. If you can get either one of them for $3 million, which would be a better fit for the Philadelphia Eagles, Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley?
Saquon Barkley. I don't know what Derrick Henry's role would be with the Eagles. We're going to assume, even with Kellen Moore coming in, that the short yardage package is still going to have something tush-push related that's going to be sneak-oriented. I think Derrick Henry's best value is as a goal line option at this point in his career. He's a guy who can not only get you that 1 yard, but you've seen him throw option passes and stuff like that. He's that threat from the I formation. I don't see the Eagles using that. I'm glad you asked, though, because I love the idea with the running back market being devalued, and other people gave me this idea. Why not get 2 or 3? If you can get guys for $3 million a year, why not get Saquon and Tony Pollard, who's worked with Kellen Moore in the past? And then you have like this one.
Oh, man. Mike, you're setting Eagles fans on fire, man. They're going to, we could get Saquon and Tony Pollard.
Get Saquon and Austin Eckler, and Eckler comes in on third down. There's all kinds of ways you could do that.
Let me repeat. That was a completely hypothetical question. Not one based in any reality where you're going to be able to get 1 or 2 of those guys for $3 million per. The reason why I asked the question is John and I debated a little bit early in the show. He's not as into Saquon Barkley as I am, because he says too much of Saquon's value is tied into being able to catch the ball out of the backfield, and he doesn't think either the Eagles or Jalen Hurts or whatever are going to do that in this upcoming year for varying reasons. I think they should be able to expand it. I'm not just going to accept because they didn't do it last year, they couldn't do it next year, and that's why I would, at the right price, be interested in Saquon Barkley or a guy like Derrick Henry, who's just hand him the football and watch him run. And his game would better, if you believe Jalen Hurts is not going to be capable or willing or whatever else of throwing the ball to a back out of the backfield, Derrick Henry, make the argument, a better straight ahead runner. That's the reason I asked the question. Just should the Eagles be open-minded to getting their offense to be more proficient throwing the ball out of the backfield, or should they just stick with what they've done the last couple of years, straight ahead, best offensive line, let's block it up and let Derrick Henry get 4+ yards a carry?
Assuming the Eagles still have the best offensive line in light of recent events. And of course,
that's true.
Right. And that's one thing to look at. I'd like to see both of these backs behind a real offensive line, which I don't think I've seen either of them in 2 years. In terms of passing out of the backfield, I mean, you still have rudimentary things, assuming this is still a Sirianni-based offense, which is kind of iffy. You still have basic swing passes and things like that. And Barkley is very effective on those. But, if we're changing the offense, I'd like to see a more dynamic screen game. I like to see a little bit more of the use of the running back as more than just a guy running inside, outside zone. And we're talking about free agency. I'd love to see a real number 3 wide receiver. I'd like to see a real slot guy.
Yeah.
Not just a guy you put in the slot because he's number 3, but like somebody who can just, run the shallow drag, catch the ball, and do something.
Wait a minute. You don't think Quez is coming back?
I don't
the
think
coach's favorite player?
I wish
Quez is done? Oh.
I wish Quez well.
Yeah. Boy, Mike, you got to get a third receiver involved. You got to get Tony Pollard. You got to get Saquon Barkley involved. There's only one football. The Eagles are going to have to get a lot of people involved. And Saquon Barkley in general, I'm getting in trouble a lot this week, so I'm going to get in trouble again. I want to get your thoughts on him. I think he's overrated. I don't think he's that good. He's tremendously talented. Don't get me wrong, But I think, Jody and I talk about pedigree a lot, and a lot of guys have to overcome their pedigree. Brock Purdy has to overcome his pedigree. In the case of Saquon Barkley, I think everybody defaults to his pedigree. Oh, he's the number 2 overall pick. He's this, he's that, he's that. Look at his career in New York. Before the injury, he had the great rookie season, and then he got hurt, and he was never the same. And then he had a little bit of an uptick in, I guess it was 2022. And then last year, he's under 4 yards a carry.
Yeah.
He's not catching the ball out of the backfield. It's 6 yards. It's not impactful. Why does everybody think Saquon Barkley is? I don't know. Pick a name. Derrick Henry.
I want to comment on this, but Mike, I'll let you go first. Well, why do you think
he's the social media running back? Saquon Barkley is the social media running back. New York fans have been like obsessed with him for years because there's no one else for the Giants to obsess about. And he does have that fame. That said, what Jody said at the beginning, 1 year, $3 million. that's the price.
Well, I would take him for 1 year, $3 million. Yeah. I would take him for that.
I'd take him for 2 at $7 million. I would take
and
that.
By the way, I'm not saying he's a bad player. He just has never been the player he was expected to be. And I think
I'll go to the wall for Saquon Barkley. The quarterbacks that Saquon Barkley has played with in New York. Give me a descriptive adjective, Mike Tanier.
Well, let's see. There's Tommy DeVito.
Tommy DeVito? It doesn't get better than Tommy DeVito.
Yeah, one word descriptive adjective. The quarterbacks that Saquon Barkley has played with in New York.
Mediocre at best.
Suck. The offensive line that Saquon Barkley, for the majority of the time that he's been in New York, how would you describe that?
Oh, it sucked.
They suck. So you expect Saquon Barkley to lead the league in rushing when he's got no quarterback, awful wide receiver. If there's a defensive coordinator facing the Giants and your number one priority for the last 5 straight years hasn't been first things first, we stop Saquon, then you should be fired. He's it. That's all that they've had.
Sounds like
the man.
I had the luxury of covering Adrian Peterson when Christian Ponder was the Minnesota Vikings quarterback.
Right, so you need me to admit that Saquon Barkley isn't Adrian Peterson. John, if that's what you're trying to do, if you're trying to pull teeth here and get me to say Saquon Barkley isn't Adrian Peterson, I'll do that. You're right. Saquon Barkley isn't Adrian Peterson.
I'm saying it is possible that if you are really what people think Saquon Barkley is, you can overcome one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen. Mike, you can talk. Christian Ponder was not good.
Oh, he was bad.
He was very bad. I would say he's far worse than Daniel Jones. I'd go that far. He won the stinking MVP. Now, you can't win MVP as a running back. Christian McCaffrey came as close as possible, I guess, and he did a tremendous job. He's not that difference play. He was what I'm trying to say, Jody, he was sold as Adrian Peterson. He ain't that type of player. He isn't Christian McCaffrey. That's all I'm trying to say. And people still think he is. A lot of people still think he is, which is bizarre to me. That's all I'm trying to say.
And again, I think online you're looking at the power of the entire Giants New York media with one guy to talk about, and the fact that like in the offseason there's nothing else to talk about for that team, so that's all they talk about. And the fantasy element, where again in 2022 he did rush 2 years ago for 1,300 yards, average 4.4 yards a carry for a bad team that kind of was having an uptick year. And so when you're looking on the fantasy side, like, well, this guy's a big deal, so you get this social media element of Saquon who's here. But Jody's right. That line last year was putrid. That was a line that had 3rd and 4th stringers out there all across every place but left tackle. And the left tackle was hurt for a while. And so you don't get this read on what Saquon can do. So if we're talking about $80 million contract for Saquon, we're nuts. But if we're talking about 2 years with incentives, he's a guy who I think can help a team.
I think you can help any team, as a matter, except for maybe the 49ers, because you're right. There is no. It's McCaffrey, and then there's a drop-off, and there's everybody else. And I think Saquon is very close to the top of everybody else. So I think if the Eagles are at least investigating, they're not making a foolish move. Do I think it's going to happen? No. because he's going to get paid enough to take him out of the Eagles' valuation of that position. But I do think he's still a very good player. If he's not Adrian Peterson, I can still evaluate him as a talent I wouldn't mind having on my team. Haason Reddick is another guy we've been debating. And to me right now, all it comes down to, Mike, is timing. Because they gave him permission to go out and seek a trade. They suggested he go out and seek a trade to see if the open market felt he was worth what he and his agent were asking for. We've gotten no smoke on this whatsoever.
No.
There have been no rumors whatsoever as to who's even interested in him, who he's had a conversation with. We can't even get a report on that. But the rubber hits the road come Monday, because the Eagles need someone on the other side away from Josh Sweat, and they need a top line guy. I mean, one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, and Haason Reddick is that, and he's under contract. And there are a couple other free agents that are out there that you would describe as the same or close to, and we got no idea how this is going to shake out for the Eagles. You want to speculate for us, big guy?
I have no speculation. Some of the dominoes that did fall is that Josh Allen of the Jaguars was franchise tagged.
Right.
Brian Burns was franchise tagged. So that top level young edge rusher did not either hit the open market or get this mammoth contract. So if Reddick was looking to see what those guys did, that's kind of a nothing burger at this point. They're franchised. They're on a one-year deal. You're kind of on a one-year deal right now. That's it. That also changes the market a little bit, which probably increases Reddick's marketability in a trade. Oh, we can't go out there. The Panthers aren't doing something stupid and letting Brian Burns walk. We have to go elsewhere for this. So I don't know. I think that raises the value of Reddick, but that also raises the trade value. And if you look at the rest of the free agent market right now, there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys around 30, maybe a year or 2, 3 older than Reddick, who you might think are on the downside, but you can still get. You can get these Zadarius Smith types. You can get these Danielle Hunter types. There's a lot of guys like that. I think it comes down to how quickly those guys sign, and then who looks at it and says the missing piece might be Reddick. And the answer to that might be the Eagles saying the missing piece is Reddick, or Reddick doesn't hear what he likes and comes back and takes what might be on the table for him.
Yeah, and I think that was the Eagles' strategy. If it works out like that, great for the Philadelphia Eagles. And they did it with Darius Slay. Maybe it works with Haason Reddick as well. Safeties, we had an interesting discussion, Mike, with Paul Domowitz before you came on.
Okay.
Paul sees it as the safeties are being devalued like running backs. You're shaking your head. You're agreeing.
Yeah.
Is that because so many teams play cover 2 and they keep everything in front and so much zone coverage? Because, man, there are a lot of safeties on the market, and the Eagles need some safeties. And you talk about bringing in 2 running backs. Well, why not bring in 2 safeties?
Yeah. Right. And you might get 2 talented safeties at a discount, the way I was talking about running backs. I don't know why they're devalued at this level. If I'm playing cover 2, if I'm playing a Fangio type thing where it looks like cover 2, but it's a bunch of things.
Yeah.
I want a veteran safety, and I want talent and speed out there. So I don't want to be like, Justin Simmons, who needs that guy? But I think it might come down to there's just tons and tons of actual talent out there. That's the running back problem. The running back problem is when you bring in a 5th-round pick and you look at him like, my God, this guy runs a 4.4. He's 215 pounds. He ran for 1,200 yards in college. He can catch the ball. Why go get Saquon when we can get this kid for free? I think there's a little bit of that at safety. That said, I don't think the Eagles have the luxury of saying, we'll just go grab some guys. Also, I don't think the safety class has these like lights out guys. So, I just mentioned Justin Simmons. I think there's going to be a big market for him. Obviously, he's got a connection to Fangio.
Yeah.
He'd be somebody to look at unless it turns into some kind of bidding war.
But do you think the Eagles are going to get the top safeties in the league are all making over $10 million? And John has told us a couple times they were ready to go there for Marcus Williams a couple of years ago. The Ravens were willing to go even further for a guy. Are they going to pay a safety over $10 million?
It depends on how it's structured, but I would do that for Simmons at this point in his career. I think he's got a year or 2 left. I would do that for Eddie Jackson. I'm not Howie, though. I don't think it would be a bad investment at this point. I think a lot of us, I'm sure you talked about the way Howie's talking about a fresh start and things like that. I'm trying to interpret that if he means that to be, if we go into free agency, it's got to be these younger guys that we have to we're building for a 3 or 4 years right now.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, Mike, because I think he is saying that. But then I think somebody like Simmons hits the market, and you go, wait, we got to revisit that plan.
Right.
On paper, I'd like to get Jordan Fuller for the Eagles. I think he's a perfect fit for the Fangio scheme. He's young. He's whatever, 25, 26, coming off that first-year contract. Won't be that expensive. But then Simmons comes in, and I think he'll probably get, 14, 15 million? He'll be up there still. Yeah. But he's good. He's still good.
Xavier McKinney's sitting there.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Cameron Curl.
Curl's another one. I don't know as much about Curl. I know he can play. McKinney's a guy that had some injury problems, etc. He can play when he's healthy. He's very young. The Giants have no idea what they're doing at this point. The Giants
they're a terrible organization.
Terrible organization. I think if the coaching staff is banana pants, we think our coaching staff was banana pants. Take a look at what Table and those guys have been doing to each other behind the scenes. And here's somebody that I like the idea of paying Simmons if the idea is, well, we're one player away because we were a Super Bowl team 2 years ago. I'm not sure I believe that. You bring McKinney in and he could be that guy and you could get him for 3 or 4 years. And then when you're paying that money, you're paying for a long-term asset.
All right, let me throw a name into the safety mix who at one point here in Philadelphia was all the rage. Had to get him, must be. He's going to be wearing Eagle green. Nobody's talking about Buda Baker these days.
Oh.
Did he and the Cardinals make nice? And is he and Jonathan Gannon on the same page that Buda is good with? I thought he was dying to get out of Arizona because he knew they were going to suck. And he didn't want to play for a team that was going to go 5-12.
Right.
And nobody's talking about him this year, I guess, because there are so many free agents on the open market.
They made nice with him last year. They got an extension done.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that is like once he started working with Gannon and saw what the vibe was, he was willing to do an extension. I could see somebody. You remember how toxic it was the year before, and all the stories that were coming out about the Cardinals.
He was on the Eagles about 27 times. He's coming. It's gonna get done. Never got done.
Right. No. I think he's comfortable with what's going on there. That's why I haven't heard anything about him trying to move.
Yeah, one of the few safeties, by the way. That and Honey Badger also re-upped, so a couple safeties, and Antoine Winfield, obviously. The Bucks weren't letting him go anywhere.
Right. And Winfield is a safety corner. Yeah. And Honey Badger's a everything. And Buda's kind of an everything guy. So that's different where you can say this is our slot corner who plays safety. I know there's been talk about CJ Gardner-Johnson coming back, and he's a safety corner. And he's a weird dude.
He's a weird dude.
But like dude. You can see the value in bringing him in. When he was healthy and his head was in the game, he was pretty useful. I've heard a lot of people say that because he made so many plays when he was here, and he did. He was a tremendous playmaker. But I mean, they just got rid of Avonte Maddox because he couldn't stay healthy. Very good player, can't stay healthy. Well, CJ got hurt here, got hurt in Detroit, wiped out his whole season. What's the difference? They need a more concrete, best ability is availability type of person, because that slot, Mike, here was a disaster. I think 8 bodies they rolled through. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. One of those bodies was Maddox at the end, and he was not what anyone was hoping. So I can see moving on from him. With injuries, I mean, the only thing you can do from an analytics standpoint is say what kind of injuries recur versus what kind of injuries are, well, that's a one-time thing, And I haven't done any research like that, but you can look at a guy and say, foot injury, Achilles injury, the heel, Liz Frank, the heel rate is X%, ACL tears, it's Y%, whatever, and you can work off of that with some of these guys.
All right, gonna get your take on. Know you've probably done some draft work after the combine. Looking ahead, know we got to get through free agency, and free agency certainly will have an impact on, if not completely dictate, what the Eagles do to fill the hole they now have on their offensive line. Jason Kelce retires. We all assume Jurgens is going to move to center. Maybe that's a little presumptive, but I'll stick with it, at least for me, which means the right guard is now open. Do you just say, in Stout we trust, and Tyler Steen is going to get the job done? Will they use one of their top 3 picks on an interior offensive lineman in the upcoming draft? John had been banging a drum before the combine that he thought a tackle was in play because Lane Johnson is getting a little old with that number 1 pick. How do you think the Eagles are going to fill the hole they have on their starting offensive line?
A tackle might be in play.
You're buying that too, huh?
If you're thinking like Howie,
well, there's so many of them. That's why I say, there's so many of them.
There's Talis Fuaga of Oregon State, who's a natural right tackle. And the only reason why he's a natural right tackle is because he's played there his entire career, and his arms may be a little shorter than the left tackle, like this whole thing that they do with left tackles and their arms. But he's been at right tackle forever at Oregon State. He's an absolute monster. He can move. If you're saying we need somebody to replace Lane Johnson, who might be there a little later in the first round, that's a guy you can get. I have not done a ton of interior line work. I know that Jackson Powers Johnson is a moose, but you're right. I don't think they're looking to actively replace at center. This is a position that the team thinks they can get and develop guys later in the draft, and I think that might be the way they go.
All right, Mike, I got it. Mike, Two Deep Zone is where you're writing at Substack, so you can subscribe there, miketanier.substack.com. You did a piece on the decline and fall of Russell Wilson, which I think is interesting. And I want to talk about Russ specifically, but also the quarterbacks as a whole. The quarterbacks, where's Justin Fields going? Where's Kirk Cousins going? But Russell Wilson, what the heck happened that they're willing to take $85 million? I remember Jody and I, Jody got it right and I got that wrong. I was like, there's no way the Eagles are taking on that Carson Wentz record dead money hit. By the way, I had Andrew Brandt in my corner.
Yeah.
The business of football.
Right.
It was shocking at the time.
Right.
Now we're up to 85. We're like, oh, we got to move on. We got to eat. It's unbelievable. What the heck happened?
Well, take Carson Wentz's level of wackiness and like multiply it by itself 10 times. You get what Russell Wilson was doing before Sean Payton came in. And a lot of us, Sean Payton gets hired and like people are like, well, Sean Payton's being hired to fix Russell Wilson. And it's like, he's not, at least not in his mind. He's there to have the power and gravitas to replace Russell Wilson, to be able to say, I'm the sheriff, and if this guy doesn't toe the line exactly the way I do it, and I get rid of him, nobody's going to blink at this because of like how I'm perceived within the NFL, et cetera. So now you've got Sean Payton, whose cap situation is a mess. That's why they're getting rid of core defensive players who've been there for a long time. And it's year 2, and he's going to just do a rebuild. He's just going to do a rebuild. And I have no idea what that looks like because I've never seen I guess I saw Sean Payton rebuild in 2004, 2005. It's been a minute, and so I don't know what it's going to look like back there. And that's why I'm kind of warning Broncos fans. If you think it was weird with Russ, when Sean Payton starts doing whatever the hell he wants, it's going to get ready for Taysom Hill, get ready for Jameis, get ready for any of these goofy things that pop into his head that he wants to do, because I think you're going to see some of that.
And by the way, they don't have a high draft pick, so they don't have the pieces to be able to get up and take one of the top 3 because they traded all of those for Russell Wilson, who they just kicked out the door with $85 million dead cap in. Yeah. Who the hell's going to be their quarterback?
Right.
Grin and bear it and take J.J. McCarthy and go, he's the guy.
I heard a Sam Darnold to Denver rumor. I think we might get a Sam Darnold sighting with the Denver Broncos. There's a couple situations. And I brought up Justin Fields. Where do you think Justin's going to end up? And then Minnesota, if Kirk Cousins goes to Atlanta, a lot of people are speculating they're up there. You talk about a team with nothing, no winning. That's Kwesi Odopa-Mensah has not done a great job there. They might be in a similar situation, and you might have a Gardner Minshew getting another starting job. Yeah, it's crazy. This the quarterback carousel, Mike. Talk about that a little
quarterback carousel. It sounds like the comfort level of Atlanta is let's bring in Kirk Cousins for a year or two and have those Matt Ryan type seasons that we got a couple of years ago, which start to look pretty good. It's like, we're kind of a playoff team with this sort of stationary but smart quarterback. And if you look at everything else they have around them in Atlanta, and if you look at that division down there, it's like, yeah, Kirk Cousins comes back healthy and just like runs a normal offense with a good offensive line and good running backs, they can win 12 games with their schedule. So you can see what Atlanta's thinking there. The Justin Fields thing, I thought Atlanta was in play. It doesn't look like that's the case. The Steelers are all over the place. They're talking to Russell Wilson. I don't think that's going to happen, but the Steelers are casting a wide net. And, when Fields goes, he's going to go to be a competitor. Whether he's going to be a competitor for Kenny Pickett or, I don't know, a competitor for Daniel Jones in New York or something like that, he's not going to get a starting job. And that means he's going to move for like a 3rd, 4th round pick.
Oof.
Yeah, it's going to be like almost like Trey Lance. It's going to be like Sam Darnold a little bit, except that Sam Darnold, like they overpaid. The Panthers overpaid a couple of years ago. So it is very strange. I forget who else you mentioned in there. Gardner Minshew.
Gardner Minshew, Minnesota. That's like, what does Minnesota do if they lose Kirk Cousins?
Well, and Kwesi has been playing hardline Moneyball. I think he thought as soon as Cousins got hurt and like Jefferson was hurt at that point, it's like, well, you know what? This team's going to sort of tank it out naturally along the way. We bring in Joshua Dobbs off the street, and it's fine. We'll finish 5-12, and then we'll get a high draft pick. And of course, the team plays well, and like, oh no, you're picking a little later in the first round. So, one scenario is, and I saw this from the Vikings media, there's ways that team can trade up and be involved without gutting things along the way. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try to trade up into a position where they can get one of these quarterbacks. But then when you start playing that game, you mentioned, getting stuck with J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy might not leave the top 5 at this point.
Are you? Hey, that's what I was going to. Do you think it is a legit? I guess you do. Legit possibility for the top 5 are going to be quarterbacks.
It could definitely be that. There's a couple things in play. One is that the New England Patriots are signaling that they just might want Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't believe that. I think they might be goofing off a little bit, seeing what's out there when someone calls them for a trade. But I think Caleb Williams is going to be number 1. I think Jaden Sanders is going to be number 2. I think McCarthy's in play for the top 5 right now.
Drake May. Yeah.
And Drake May. Yeah.
So are you projecting what you think is going to happen, or are you giving us the Tanier ratings?
Little bit
that close to the top 3.
A little bit of projection and a little bit of that. I like McCarthy. I wouldn't take him 3rd overall. I wouldn't take him 4th.
That is bold.
Here's the question I have for you.
Yeah.
Would you take him before Michael Penix?
Yes, I would take him before Michael Penix.
I wouldn't.
I'm not a Drake May fan either, but I'm not there. I'm not there yet.
I'm a Jaden Daniels guy. That's who I want. I want
that.
Jaden Daniels for the modern game. Now he's a little bit slight. That scares me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to take care of himself. But boy, I think he's going to be a playmaker. I think
reminds me a lot of Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
I'm a Drake May guy. I would take Drake May with the number 1 pick overall ahead of Caleb Williams, because I think Caleb could be a handful. He might be someone that you have to deal with above and beyond just how good he is on the field.
I think he's taking a pay cut.
Yeah. With Caleb Williams, it's almost like you have to approach him like he's a 4th-year free agent walking in.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you really want to do that with a rookie who's never played it down in the net?
Well, luckily he's going to go to a very strong organization with a history of handling things at the quarterback position very well.
Oh my God! I'll flip side what Jody Mack comes in. You have somebody who's coming in who's already handling his money, who's already got these figures. So it's not like, money's going to change this kid. You don't have to worry.
Yeah, he's already got it. Yeah, that's
right. He's already learned some of those skills along the way. Maybe that's a plus.
Yeah.
Or he actually took a step backwards this year when he started to make some money. So he's going to make even more money. So he takes another step backwards. That's as reasonable a scenario as the one you just laid out, Mike. All right. So John asked this question of several guys we had on this week. I'm stealing his line, his descriptive adjective. Splashy. Will the Eagles between Monday and Wednesday do something splashy? And you can use your own definition of splashy. John's got his, I got mine, you got yours. None of us will be wrong, but I hope we're all in the same ballpark or close. Will the Eagles do something splashy between Monday and Wednesday next week?
The only splashy thing I could think of would be Reddick re-signing. That's the only thing that I could see them making a move for, or some kind of Fletcher motion. I don't see them doing something outside the box like that. If Howie's got this wacky trade for the draft in his mind that he's working on, some of these pieces have to fall before the trade partners would say yes. Like nobody's going to make these galaxy brain. I can see the Eagles somehow being a broker in one of these trades and winding up with somebody's 2nd round pick as they try to move up, and the Eagles just moving around a little bit.
Yeah, all these quarterback desperate teams take advantage of them. Yeah.
Right. Oh, you need some other piece to get this piece to work. Well, we'll throw this draft pick in, but then you have to give us this, and they come out the other end. Like Kirk Cousins sort of has to fall before teams want to do that. The Vikings have to be like in the mix to say we want to do something, or the Bears, with Fields. And I don't think you're going to see that in the next 3 days.
And I don't know that it's juicy, it's splashy,
Okay.
to use Johnny's word. I don't think anybody's going to trade at the top. I think they're all going to sit there. I don't know that somebody's going to blow a team away with an offer.
Right.
There's so many different possibilities. Well, if this happens and that happened, the domino effect. And I know we'll have you back on at least once, if not twice, between now and the draft, Mike. I think it could just go boom, 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 and they pick an order and nobody moves up.
Possible. It rarely happens that way. I can see the top 3 staying put, but then there becomes this scramble. You know,
Jonathan Gannon controls the draft at number 4. Is that what you're telling us?
Jonathan Gannon controls the draft. You don't need a quarterback. You don't want a quarterback.
Right.
He can sit there. He can try to. They got the 2 first-rounders there.
Monty Ossenfort controls, and he's not above tampering, so he knows what's going on.
Right.
JG, if you're watching, because we know you're a big McMullen fan, because McMullen's a big JG fan, don't pass on Marvin Harrison, you idiot. If quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, and Marvin Harrison's sitting there, I don't care how much you.
But yeah, you're giving JG way too much credit. Monty's running that draft, so we'll see. He's in charge. But at Mike Tanier, as I said, .substack.com. Make sure you go subscribe to that. I'm going to put you on the spot, but real quick. If you are Howie Roseman, very savvy veteran general manager, and you got the hat on, you got the beard, you're a very savvy football writer, and we all enjoy and we all respect. Who's the GM you're going to pick up the call? I know I can take advantage of that guy. I don't know if you talk draft day, but the Jacksonville GM at draft day with Kevin Costner. Who's that guy that you can pick up and just say, all right, I'm gonna police this guy today.
Mickey Loomis again, maybe?
Oh, poor man. That's a Howie Roseman special.
Right. That's the speed dial. Like 1 is wife, 2 is Mickey Loomis on his phone.
1 is poison control, 2 is Mickey Loomis. Yeah.
Right. Maybe Ryan Poles out in Chicago because he's got all these assets and he's got all these things. I don't turn to Kwesi. Kwesi is smart. I don't turn to Monty Ossenfort. He's smart. I don't try to call the Joneses because they're very good at haggling. I would go.
How about Joe Douglas?
Ooh, yeah. Why not?
Joe's on the hot seat this year. I'm sorry,
Joe's
at least for
on
me.
the
And
hot
everybody knows I'm a Jet
He's
guy.
you got it. It's good to look at the guys who are GMing for their jobs too, and Joe certainly is.
In the first year, the new ones, and I haven't really gone through some of these new ones. I don't know who's running the people. Vegas is what's his name from the Chargers, so that's not that big a deal. But let's see what the Chargers GM. They've got cap problems, etc. But I like the idea of Joe Douglas. That's a team doesn't have a 2nd round pick. Has like all kinds of holes on the offensive line, does not have much money to spend. And of course, Joe Douglas has got to operate with what Aaron Rodgers wants.
Yeah. He's got to listen to Aaron too.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's almost like he can only like work with the defense and stuff, or maybe bring in some picks. And then
that was a good one, Jody. Unfortunately for your club.
Yeah,
that was a good one.
And oh, by the way, good news, Jet fans. Aaron Rodgers says he might play 4 more years. Who does he think he is? Tom Brady? 4 more years? So Aaron Rodgers and Donald Trump for 4 more years. Okay. Good. That's good to know. Good to know.
Hey, Trump hasn't picked a running mate. Maybe.
Aaron Rodgers. Maybe that's what he meant. Thank you, Mike Tanier. We're not going to have to worry about Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be Donald Trump's VP. All right, that's good. Tanier, always fun whenever you come on. Thank you very much for jumping in. We'll get you back up in a couple of weeks. Appreciate it, bud.
Take care, guys.
Thanks,
Mike Tanier here with us on Birds 365. Always have fun when we have Mikey T on. All right, quickie timeout. Come back. We'll put a bow on the show, put a bow on the week here on Birds 365.